and welcome back to the Reelwind. My name is Taylor Lee, and I am the activities coordinator or lifestyle coordinator at Overture Buckhead South. And today we are going to be talking about a movie that was released in 1999 called Magnolia. Magnolia is a drama epic, and it's 3 hours and 9 minutes long. Yeah, that's right, you heard me correctly. 3 hours and 9 minutes long. So I'm here to kind of give a little bit of a review about that movie, and maybe based on the review, you might decide that you want to watch it, maybe not. Where do I even start? Well, for one, warning, there might be some spoilers if you are interested in seeing this movie. If you do want to watch this movie, like you've known you wanted to watch it, it's on your watch list, I recommend watching it first before watching this, just in case. There's not really too many spoilers, but I would hate to give something pertinent to the film away. So I guess let's start where I normally start, and that's with the characters and their character breakdown. I want to start off by saying there's so many characters listed. Like, even if you look it up on Wiki, they give you, like, I don't know, more than 10 characters. Some of them you don't really see that much, but honestly, you do see a lot of them, primarily throughout the film. One of the focal characters is Stanley Specter. I'm not sure what grade he's in. He's a younger boy, he's a kid. He's very smart and bright, very interested in lots of different things, just basically the world that goes on around him. He finds very interesting. Let's see, he's very insightful for somebody his age, which kind of goes to his boy genius kind of label that he carries with him. And you kind of watch all the adults throughout the film just really let him down, which is slightly heartbreaking. But it also kind of gives you insight to what one of the other characters' lives was probably like when he was about Stanley's age, because he was also a boy genius when he was younger, and he was, what's his name? Donnie Smith, and he was like the whiz kid, was his label. So Donnie is an adult in the film. We do see him maybe once or twice as a child, but not primarily. And overall throughout the film, he is an adult. And we kind of see how different his life kind of has turned out, even though as a child he did have that like kind of fame and glory set up. He's kind of living in that shadow of his former self, that famous past that he comes from. And I think that he puts a lot of pressure on himself in the current time period based on his past and how the public viewed him then based on where he's at now. I guess he kind of feels like he peaked back in his youth and now there's nothing really left for him, and that's kind of upsetting. He's also very much in debt, which you would think, like, well, if he won a bunch of game show quizzes and stuff as a kid, how is he broke? And the movie kind of goes into detail about that, and a lot of that has to do with his relationship with his parents and their parental role with him. But I'm not going to get too much into that. He's also very self-loathing, like I said, but that also kind of plays into the overall aspect of the film and where we see the other characters in the movie as well. I'll just get into that later. One of the other main characters is Frank T.J. Mackey, and he is a very prominent figurehead in society in terms of like a self-help promoter in a way, but on like the masculinity scale or the masculinity side of it. He seems to be a womanizer, very womanizing. He's also the son of Earl, who is another main character, and I'll get to him next. But Frank seems very self-absorbed in a lot of aspects, and a lot of times people that seem to have this kind of obsession with themselves and how they look and things like that generally are the ones that secretly dislike themselves the most, or they're like that because they're kind of trying to cover up something that they're insecure about, something from their past, or maybe their looks, or just something about them. And a lot of times it stems directly from their childhood, and it was something that they never really came to terms with or were able to get over. So they kind of put up this front to make people look at that more than the insecurity. But he honestly makes me want to give this movie a very low rating because I really don't like his character, like at all. By the end of the movie, you kind of understand why he is that way, but I really didn't like him at all. Honestly, throughout the whole beginning, I would just thought to myself, like, who hurt you? Why are you like this? Because of words he used and like analogies that he would give, and I didn't really like it or appreciate it very much. He's also, come to find that he is a big liar, which again kind of plays into that how he wants to be viewed kind of aspect of his life and the reality of it. So he kind of gives himself a better background to almost make himself feel better and to kind of deflect from having to talk about his past and to talk about his childhood and where he came from. He seems to be full of anger and rage, which again, you kind of figure out why that is by the end of the movie. And it is understandable. I'm not saying that it gives him the right to be a jerk or a liar or a womanizer, but it does make a lot of sense why he might be the way he is. And again, a lot of that anger and rage is redirected. He redirects it into something else. And so he kind of like launched all that emotion into his career and really never looked back on it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, you can't really get too far in life without trying to come to terms with certain things from your past or recognizing your past. I'm just going to stop with him right there. I could say more, but we talked about him enough. I brought up his father, who is Earl Partridge. And he is on his deathbed in the movie, so that's pretty much where we see him and where we start out with him. You can tell he's a very wealthy man based on his home and the fact that he does have multiple dogs and really nice cars, and yeah, you can just tell by his lifestyle that he does have money. He is extremely sick. Like I said, he's on his deathbed. He's very stubborn though still. He knows exactly what he wants, which good for him, I guess. And we also find out that he's the one that owns the network that the game show, the Quiz Kid game show is on, which again, Donnie Smith was on as a child. And that also kind of helps us see how all these people are interconnected as you get to know their characters, and it kind of makes a little more sense on that. That's kind of all I have to say about him in a lot of ways. We don't see his previous wife, which would have been Frankie's mother, Lily, but she is alluded to. So I'm not going to get into her. But he does have a new wife, Linda Partridge, who is significantly younger than him. So sometimes that does bring up a lot of like questions amongst other people, especially because you do have this older guy who is but very well off, and then this younger woman. And she's very scattered due to the situation, but also we find that she feels very guilty and that she's full of a lot of sadness. And it's not just because of her husband's current situation, but it's kind of like what the foundation of their marriage and relationship like ultimately started out on, and how she feels about him now. And it's just very hard for her to grapple with the situation that's happening and unfolding in front of her, which is, and again, understandable. Let's see here. We also have this other character, very minute, who's Guinevere, and she's the one who we see interviewing Mackie, again, Frank T.J. Mackie, who is the Partridge's son, and she's kind of the one that ultimately makes him kind of face his past. So that's the part that she plays in that. Another character that we have that's not too significant but does play a part in it, her name is Rose Gaynor, or Gadar. Yeah, I think it's Gadar. She seems very stressed. She is the wife of Jimmy Gadar, which is another one of the characters who I'll talk about next. And she's the mother of Claudia, who I will talk about after Jimmy. Moving on to Jimmy Gadar, he's not really the kind of person that the public sees like most people. He has like secrets and things like that, things that he's not proud of, things that he ultimately admits to being ashamed of, which I think we all have stuff like that, but it's a little different just because he is a public figure, so it's a little harder to kind of like hide all that. And I imagine that you got to keep trying to keep a story straight with all that stuff out there would be very difficult. But anyways, he's Claudia's father, like I said, because his wife is Claudia's mother. Him and his daughter have this very strained father-daughter relationship, and it makes you kind of want to know why, and that does become answered in the film as well, so I'm not going to give that away, but it really gives you an insight to the family dynamic, I guess, and why he might be so self-destructive as well. There's a lot of self-destructive people in this entire film, which again plays back into the overall, I think, aspect of what the film was going for. He is the one that is the host of the kids quiz game show as well, so that's kind of how he's tied in to all these other people, like I said before. So let's get on to his daughter, Claudia. Her name is Claudia Wilson Gadar, but when asked her name, she goes by Claudia Wilson, probably because she doesn't want to be associated with her father, which again becomes slightly understandable. She is the one that automatically off the bat that we see and you think she is most definitely self-destructive. And again, a lot of that has to do with the things from her past that she's having difficulties grappling with and coming to terms with and really opening up about and talking about. And so instead of trying to face those things and overcome them, she chooses to kind of push it off and try to act like it never happened or forget about it. And so the only way that she can do that is by engaging in these self-destructive activities such as drinking and doing drugs and things to that nature. She does, however, meet someone that kind of gives her this little glimmer of hope, and his name is Officer Jimmy Curing, I think. I think that's his last name. But Officer Jimmy is one of the more rock-based characters in the film. He seems to be going through the motions, though, not really doing too much, just kind of shows up, is there, but tries to make the most of it in a lot of ways. He seems to have the lighter affect of pretty much anybody else in the film. He does have a lot of comical scenes, I will admit. I did laugh out loud at those. And I really enjoyed his scenes. And I think that's because his overall disposition was so different in comparison to all the other characters. He's a very hopeful person. And he just wants to do right by people. And he wants to kind of inevitably help the helpless in a lot of ways. He is someone that you see, like, when you watch him in the film, you think, like, oh, he obviously believes in second chances and giving second chances. Before I move on, love talking, sorry. You know, with a 3-hour and 9-minute movie, you have a lot of characters, so there's gonna be a lot of talking. Sorry about that. So let's move on to another character. Looking at my list right now, sorry. Like I said, there's a lot of characters. Let's talk about Phil Harmon. He is actually Earl Partridge's nurse. He seems very kind and caring. So that's good considering that he's this guy's nurse. He also seems to want to be extremely helpful because Claudia and her father aren't the only ones that have a strained child parental relationship, but Earl and his son Frankie also have a very strained relationship. So they haven't communicated at all for a very long time. And again, you find out why that is. So he tells Phil that he wants to see or speak with his son. And so throughout the film, you're watching Phil, the nurse, trying to basically track this person down and tell him what's going on and somehow try to get him there. And you see that he goes to a lot of great lengths to make this happen, which again shows that he's a very caring and kind person and that he truly cares about Earl Partridge, who he's been taking care of for who knows how long. So that was nice. Then there's Alan Kingman. Alan Kingman is the lawyer for Linda Partridge and Earl Partridge, and he's not too much of a big character, but we do see Linda come to him and confide in him about kind of her and Earl's relationship and why she is kind of feeling all that sadness and being so scattered, and that's where we find out how their relationship started and where they're at now. So that's why I'm mentioning him, is just, so you get an idea. Let's talk about Rick Specter, and yes, that last name should sound familiar because he is Stanley Specter's father. He's not very present for his son at all. He's actually honestly quite rude to his son. And you definitely see that he's only using his son. He's using his son's insane recollection ability as well as his intelligence to inevitably make him money, and again comes the fame and the glory. He's a very selfish person. Moving on from there. Again, in this studio that Earl Partridge owns that this game show is being broadcasted from, we have Cynthia, who works there, and she kind of helps with Stanley in the show. She's like the coordinator for that show specifically. And you start out kind of liking her, but then when you see how she inevitably kind of is neglectful, in a sense of the word, you don't really like her that much, and she's just adding to the adults that are letting Stanley down. Mary also works at the broadcasting networks. She works for Jimmy, and she's kind of serves as Jimmy's confidant. Again, Jimmy is the person that is the show's host, but you see him confide in her about something, but then you're like, why didn't he confide in his wife about this? Or why didn't he confide in someone else about this? So I don't know what that's about, but you kind of see that little bit of a relationship too, and you get a feel for her in a sense, because you do see her, but she doesn't play like a huge significant role in the film. We also have Delmer, what's his last name? Darian or something like that. And he's just, honestly, the way the film starts is it starts out like in the past to kind of give you some name drops here and there, and kind of set up for the present day of the film. But he's just a blackjack dealer. He dies, and that's it. But he's the person that we start the movie off with. Inevitably, I'm not sure what purpose he serves other than setting up the story. But that brings us to the last character that I am going to mention, which is Burke Ramsey, who is also like our narrator in the beginning of the film. He actually has a very good narrating voice, I will say, so that's a plus for him. He's the one that starts the film by giving the background for the potential lead up to different parts of the film. He is also business partners with Jimmy Gadar. So that kind of is how all those people kind of intersect and intertwine with each other. So yeah, that was a lot of people. Moving on to the overall film. Overall, it starts out with a lot of death. There's a lot of death in it, and I know that's a very inevitable thing in life, but wow, what a way to start a film, and what a way to continue on. The music, honestly, loved the music. It was all very, very good. The thing that I think I disliked the most was how it not only really the film started, but the first couple minutes of it, honestly, it felt a little chaotic in the start, and I think that's because you are trying to be introduced to multiple characters, and you're also trying to be given some of their like background story, so it's all kind of happening very, very fast to get to the actual story plot. So it's kind of hard to keep up with, or maybe that was just me because I was also trying to like get a feel for the characters in the beginning and see if that kind of changed over time. Maybe it would be different if I wasn't watching it to do a review on. But again, this next part kind of plays into the Mackie character, but I really just liked some of the language or the word choices that were used in the film, especially by that character specifically. So, warning, if you don't like foul language, this film really isn't for you. There was one character that wasn't really even a main character, but I think I liked her the most. Her name was Marcy, I think that was her name, and she's the first person that we kind of see interacting with the officer, and I don't know why, but I found that scene extremely comical for some reason. I don't know, but she was honestly my favorite character, and I think that's a little sad that my favorite character was somebody who wasn't even a primary character of the movie. But moving on from that, the movie overall kind of discusses this endless loop that we can sometimes find ourselves in, and how it's not going to change or stop until we change the pattern of it. So inevitably it's talking about how we get stuck in that rut or that loop, and then we might be complaining about that rut or that loop, but it's like we don't have to be stuck there forever. The only reason that we're running it still is because we're in this mindset of like, well, it's not going to get better from here, or I deserve this, or what have you. And so it's kind of like, yeah, you will be stuck in that monotonous running loop forever, unless you actually take the initiative to change that and to kind of face some of your struggles head on instead of just accepting it. It kind of talks about how you have the power to change the narrative and to amend the things from your past, and that all you can do is try, and you can't control how others respond or react to that, or to you seeking that kind of reconnection or trying to seek that forgiveness. The common thing that I saw all the primary characters looking for or kind of seeking out in this film was love and forgiveness. And sometimes it seems like that's a very hard thing to say out loud that you need. And sometimes it can be even harder to receive it. And sometimes we even feel like we're not worthy of love, or that we're not worthy of forgiveness, when in actuality we are. So it can be really hard to even tell yourself that you deserve those things, and that it's okay to say, I need this, or I need that, or this is what I'm looking for. And sometimes, because we kind of close ourselves off, we end up having all this love in ourselves to give to other people, and we're not sure how to do that. We're not sure how to express it and to kind of give it, in because we're so afraid of becoming hurt and not receiving any love or forgiveness back to ourselves, or feeling like because we are unworthy of those things, like, why should I give it when I know that I don't deserve it back? So it just kind of, these feelings just build and build and build inside of you. And that's something that we see with a lot of these characters, basically every single one of them. It also kind of shows how our actions can have unseen consequences with them, and how our actions can affect others, not just in that moment, but potentially from that point forward, and why it's so important for us to kind of think before we act, or even before we speak, because sometimes we don't know what the other person's going through, and that what we say or do might affect them so severely that it kind of changes their view of life or their course. And again, I know that you can't really, you have no, what's the word I'm looking for? You have no effect on how the person reacts, or what they do or what they say. You can only control your reaction and what you say. So I'm not saying that like it's technically this person's fault that some of these people felt this way or anything, but it's important that you recognize the part that was played from your end into that. And again, that goes back to the whole seeking of forgiveness. When you realize stuff like that, it's important to ask for that forgiveness and to be truthful about it, like to really say it like you mean it, basically. There's one kid in the film that continuously keeps rapping the same thing kind of over and over and over again. You see him like twice. And I think what the kid is what he's kind of saying is that these people have inevitably killed themselves to a certain aspect due to their actions, and they played a part in their own demise. And again, that goes back to facing your past or facing your choices, and then instead of getting stuck in, again, that loop or that negative mindset, working on building yourself up from that point. So like seeking that forgiveness and like trying to move on and move forward from that instead of letting those things affect your future and your current life now. Yes, it does play a part, and yes, stuff can be extremely difficult to get over, but I can assure you that every small step forward is still a step forward, and sometimes you will have bad days, and sometimes it will be extremely difficult, but eventually you will move on. You will move forward from that, and that at that point, when you start facing it, the days to come and follow are so much easier to face and to deal with, instead of being stuck in that loop and trying to take on every single day from like a center point where you're not moving forward or anything. So I think that that's kind of what he's talking about, is because these people haven't really faced that. The reason they are the way they are isn't just because of that instance or because that person, but because of their mindset and their kind of shoving it in the background of their mind and letting it continue to play this huge part in their current lifestyle. And because of that, they've kind of, again, inevitably killed a part of themselves. A lot of the film is about being honest and facing fears and flaws, which is a very good message. Like, behind the whole thing, like the message that it's giving is a very good one. The one part that I kind of, when I was like visually watching it, that I was just like, what the heck, about was the last 22 minutes, and I had no idea what was going on. Spoiler, if you want to watch it, I would turn the film off here. You can come back to it. If you want to stay. But there were frogs falling from the sky, and I was like, what the heck is this about? Like, what's going on? And so in my head, I was thinking like, okay, so the frogs are a metaphor for how stories are kind of told and how there are different sides of a story. And also, again, about how death is, it happens, it's inevitable, and how we need to kind of ask for that forgiveness and seek out that love before we're right there at the end. And how sometimes there are just simply no answers for certain questions or for certain reasons. Like sometimes things happen and there's not an answer for it. Like when we feel like our world is coming to an end, sometimes we just need someone to listen and to kind of care for us and comfort us in those times. And we're all worthy of that. We all deserve that. And again, that can come back to the forgiveness and love that these people were seeking. Sometimes that seeking of the love and forgiveness isn't even from other people. It's not from someone else, but ourselves. And I think that's even something that's so much harder, is to forgive and to love yourself. And to me, we can ask somebody for forgiveness, and we can even say that we're sorry, like, and also forgive other people, but sometimes it still sticks with us. And so we need to like also come to terms with ourselves and what we feel about that situation or that instance. And we need to forgive ourselves. Like, an example would be Claudia. I think that she harbored so many emotions within herself for so long that she was on this self-destructive loop, because she felt ashamed and she felt like she was unworthy of someone loving her because of what had happened to her, and that she just felt ultimately destroyed and like nothing. And so because she felt like nothing, she treated herself like nothing. But in the end of the movie, you kind of see her realize to herself that just because what happened to her doesn't make her any less worthy of love. It doesn't make her any less worthwhile. It doesn't make her unforgivable or trash. And so she kind of accepted that, and it seemed as though she forgave herself for how she was treating herself during that time, and how she was coming to terms with loving herself in the end of it all and moving forward, how she was turning it around and getting out of that loop and moving forward by accepting love from other people. But again, some of that has to start within us, because sometimes we truly can't move on even if we've received that love or received that forgiveness or whatever else, because we're still harboring it inside of ourselves because we haven't faced every angle from it fully. Let's see. There was another part too, because I honestly wanted an answer to that frog thing. And so one thing that I found was that in the overall film, 3s and 8s were alluded to a lot. And so that kind of goes back to the Exodus 8:2, which was one of the plagues. And that plague was in an attempt to compel Pharaoh to release the Israelites from enslavement. So with that whole thing with the frogs coming down from the sky, in the movie, the focal characters were enslaved by something, and truthfully by themselves. And that also goes back to that, what I was saying earlier about how they initially kind of killed a part of themselves by shutting down or locking themselves in. So they had enslaved themselves in this one moment of their life and kind of stayed there and compared everything else from that point forward by that kind of like by that action or by that event. So by the end of the movie, again, they all begin to release themselves from that thing or from that moment in time, and seek forgiveness from themselves. And they're like recognizing that they deserved better and are not at fault for the instances or the indecencies or injustice that were done to them. And that truly only happens in the film after the frogs. So a lot of it dealt with kind of like a mental health aspect, which honestly was not planned but was great because this is Mental Health Awareness Month. So that was kind of interesting. But I don't know. Like it's a film that is kind of critical thinking, obviously. It was an okay film. Again, like I said, the message behind it all was a very profound and good message. We are all worthy and deserving of love, and we are all worthy and deserving of forgiveness, and we deserve happiness. And sometimes the only way we can truly receive that is by allowing ourselves to accept it from ourselves. I know I keep saying that, but it's because we only have control over ourselves. So we could ask that person for forgiveness all day long and they may never give it to us, or we might want that person to love us all day long and they might not feel that way. They might not give that to us, but we can't control that, and we can't let them continue to control and have so much power over ourselves and our lives and our emotions. And sometimes we have to allow ourselves to move on from that. And we have to say, like, it's okay. You didn't deserve the way they treated you. You didn't deserve what they said to you. You can move on from this and it'll be okay. Like, you're not that kind of person or whatever. Or it's okay that that person doesn't love you because there are so many other people out there that do love you or that will love you. And it's more important that we love ourselves instead of seeking that validation from someone else. Because when you give other people the power to control yourself and your feelings, that's when you truly start to lose who you are and enslave yourself in that self-loathing loop that these characters were kind of stuck in, and it can lead to some very dark places and some very self-destructive actions on your part. So, yeah. Anyways, honestly, even though I really loved the overall message of the film, I think I'm going to give it a 2. I honestly am going to give it a 2 frogs falling from the sky because of how disjointed it felt in some places, and mainly for that one character who continued to womanize and use profanity, and how jumbled the beginning was, at least to me. I mean, the next best thing that I can tell you to do is just go and watch the movie for yourself. I don't want this to discourage you from watching the movie because, again, people have their own tastes and likes. So maybe this movie just wasn't for me in the visual aspect of it. Yeah, and I guess if there's anything to take away from this, just remember that you are worthy, you are loved, and you are amazing because you are you. And that's all I have for you. So thanks for watching another episode of The Reelwind. Hope you liked it. If you did, remember to like this video. And if you would love to see more videos like this or others, you can subscribe to our channel. Hashtag adult, hashtag active. Might be reversed. But feel free to like our channel and to give this video a like. It would mean a lot to us for you to support us and our channel. And I guess if you would like for us to maybe do a film that you guys suggest, you can leave a comment below in the comment section telling us what you thought of this review or what kind of movie you want us to watch next to review. And until next time, I'll see you next time. Bye!